The room was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't soothe, it suffocates. Outside, rain tapped gently against the window, but inside it was a storm. I was sitting on the edge of our bed, her diary trembling in my hands. My fingers were cold, my breath shallow. The scent of her perfume, lavender and something else, something floral and sweet, still lingered in the room like a ghost refusing to leave. The pages were soft, worn from nights she'd curled under the blanket to write in it. I used to think it was poetry, dreams, maybe even love notes meant for me. But it wasn't. I read it once, then again, because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I wanted to misread it, twist it, make it lie for me. There's something about the way he listens to me that makes me feel more alive than I've ever felt. I know I shouldn't want him, but I do. I love the man I come home to, but I crave the man who sees me. Each sentence was a scalpel, cutting deeper into flesh I didn't know could still bleed. I wasn't reading words. I was watching trust die in real time. The walls felt like they were moving in, closer and closer. My ears rang like some kind of alarm had gone off inside me. I didn't cry. Not yet. There was no space for tears. Only a strange, hollow ache that started in my chest and radiated outward. She had promised loyalty. I remembered her hand in mine, the way her eyes had locked with mine the day we moved in together. The whispered, always you in the dark. Laughter. Shared meals. Plans. All of it. Rewritten by ink on paper that wasn't meant for me to see. And yet there I was, reading the private confessions of the woman I gave my heart to, and realizing I'd only ever had half of hers. I could still hear her humming in the kitchen from that morning, as if nothing was wrong. I could still feel the warmth of her kiss goodbye. But now it all felt staged, rehearsed, like a scene in a play where I didn't know I was just the supporting role. And then the door creaked open. Her keys jingled in the lock. She was home. I didn't know if I should hide the diary or hold it like a weapon. I just sat there, frozen. She walked in with a smile, that smile, and said my name like she always did, like it meant something. But when our eyes met, something shifted. She saw the book in my hands. Her face dropped, not in surprise, but in recognition, like she'd always known this day would come. My voice was barely a whisper when I asked, "How long have you been writing love letters to someone else while pretending to love me?" And she didn't answer, only silence, heavier than anything I've ever carried. The world didn't end in that moment, just stopped making sense. How do you rebuild a heart that was broken by the very hands that promised to protect it? If someone asked me then, I would have said we were happy. Not in a flashy social media kind of way, but in the quiet, comforting way that feels like home. Mornings started with shared silence over coffee. She always took hers black with a single teaspoon of sugar. I used to tease her about how she'd stir it exactly 5 times, never more. She said it was her ritual, like some spell she cast to start the day right. I'd wake up first, usually, just to watch her sleep for a few moments before her alarm buzzed. She had this small wrinkle between her eyebrows when she dreamed, like she was fighting something in her sleep. I used to wonder if she dreamed of me. We had our routines, our little rituals. Tuesdays were for Thai takeout and old movies. Sundays were sacred. A walk in the park, hand in hand, and late brunch at that place she loved with the stained glass windows. She always ordered the same thing: sourdough toast, poached eggs, and a grapefruit mimosa. And I always ended up finishing whatever she couldn't eat. We talked about the future a lot, where we'd live next, if we'd get a dog, what color we'd paint the nursery someday. There were nights we'd lie on the floor, faces turned to the ceiling, talking about our dreams like we had all the time in the world to make them come true. I didn't know it then, but now I look back and realize there were fractures in the glass, tiny, almost invisible ones. Moment here. A flicker of something in her eyes when I said I loved her, and she hesitated just a beat too long before saying it back. That weekend when she went on a solo retreat, claiming she needed space, and came back different, quieter, distant. The sudden shift in her phone habits. Screen always facing down, notifications turned off, That little smile she'd give to her messages when she thought I wasn't watching. But I didn't ask, because asking meant acknowledging something was off. And I wanted so badly to believe we were okay. Love has this way of making you lie to yourself, of letting red flags bleed into pink, soft and ignorable. I told myself she was just tired, stressed, that maybe I wasn't doing enough. So I started doing more. Surprise flowers, random notes tucked into her coat pockets. I even took up cooking because she once mentioned how much she missed real homemade meals. I thought love meant trying harder. I didn't see that she had already begun to drift. There was this night, late autumn, when we danced barefoot in the kitchen to a Billie Holiday song. She laughed, her head on my chest, and whispered, "I don't know what I'd do without you." I believed her. That's the part that still catches in my throat. Not the betrayal itself, but the memory of moments so tender they felt like proof. Proof that what we had was real. That I wasn't imagining us. Because when someone holds you close and whispers a promise, you believe them, even if something deep inside you is already starting to scream. Looking back, I realize I loved her with my whole heart. But maybe she only loved the idea of being loved like that. And so I ignored the silences, the vague answers, the way her gaze sometimes drifted past me, as if searching for something else. I thought love was enough. But love, real love, needs truth. And I was the only one offering mine. Didn't happen all at once. The unraveling came in fragments, tiny, sharp slivers that didn't cut deeply at first. But they added up. The first real shift was subtle. She stopped reaching for my hand when we crossed the street. Something she'd done since our second date. I noticed it once, thought it was a fluke. The second time I reached first, and her fingers felt reluctant. Then there were the late nights. She started coming home later than usual. Work, she said. Always work. A new project, a demanding client, back-to-back meetings. The excuses were airtight, believable, except for how often she avoided looking me in the eyes when she said them. She never lied outright, not at first. She blurred the truth, softened it, dressed it up in half-smiles and explanations that didn't invite follow-ups. And I, foolish, desperate, didn't ask. I told myself I trusted her. But really, I was afraid of what the truth might cost me. One night, I saw her smiling at her phone in that way people do when they think no one's watching. Soft, distant, immersed. Her eyes glowed with something I hadn't seen directed at me in a while. I asked gently, "Who's that?" She flinched. Just a second, but enough. "Oh, just Sarah from the design team," she replied too quickly. "She sends the funniest memes." Sarah. A name she'd never mentioned before. I wanted to believe her, so I did. But something inside me had shifted. After that, I started noticing everything. The way her phone never left her side. How she started locking it, something she never used to do. The way she started wearing perfume on days she said she wasn't going anywhere important. One evening while she showered, her phone buzzed. I didn't touch it. I didn't even move. But the name that flashed across the screen stopped my breath. Ethan. Just that. Name. No last name. No emoji. But somehow it said more than I wanted to hear. I didn't sleep that night. She curled into me like nothing was wrong, like we were still whole. Her breath was warm against my shoulder, and I stared at the ceiling, my stomach in knots. I was losing her. Or maybe already had. Still I held on. The mind does strange things when it's scared of breaking. It invents reasons, makes excuses, covers wounds with hope like a child using a blanket to fight monsters. But then came the lie I couldn't swallow. She said she was flying out of town for a work conference. I packed her bag, kissed her at the door, told her I loved her. She smiled too brightly and left. But that night, while scrolling through my feed, I saw a photo, posted by a friend of a friend. Party. Rooftop. She was there, wine in hand, laughing, wearing the necklace I gave her last Christmas. And beside her was Ethan, his arm resting too easily around her waist. I stared at that image until my phone went dark in my hand. I couldn't lie to myself anymore. Something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not explosively, but quietly, like a glass breaking in the back of your mind. The woman who said she belonged to me was living a story I was never meant to read. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because I wasn't ready to lose everything. Because I still wanted her to choose me. But denial doesn't save you. It only delays the fall. And my fall was coming. I didn't confront her right away. Maybe I should have. But when you love someone that deeply, your instinct isn't to run, it's to reach. Even if you're reaching into fire. She came back from that work trip like nothing happened. Her lips brushed mine with that same softness. But her eyes, they didn't linger like they used to. I asked how the conference was. She rattled off a list of vague, polished details. Hotel rooms, long panels, boring speeches. Not one word about the rooftop, or the wine, or him. I told myself, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I misread everything. So I tried harder. Cooked her favorite meal. I cleaned the apartment top to bottom. I even booked us a weekend getaway, hoping to remind us, of the version of ourselves that once danced barefoot and planned futures under string lights. She said yes. But she didn't pack her favorite sweater. She didn't laugh the same way when we watched our old shows. And at night, she rolled to the edge of the bed, her body curled inward, away from mine. I asked her gently, "Are you okay?" She smiled thin, polite. "Just tired." Tired. That word became a wall between us. I heard it more often than I heard "I love you." Still, I didn't let go. I asked her to talk to me. She nodded, said soon. Asked again. She cried. Said she was overwhelmed. I held her, let her sob into my chest, not realizing those weren't tears of guilt. They were tears of entrapment. She wasn't trying to come closer. She was mourning the love she had already buried. And I became a mirror to her guilt. Every kind gesture I offered only seemed to push her further into silence. I started questioning myself. Was I too much? Not enough? Too clingy? Too distant? Did I love her the wrong way? I found myself staring into mirrors, searching for the flaws that might have driven her away. The weight I'd gained, the tired lines under my eyes, the way I sometimes forgot the small things, like picking up oat milk or asking about her boss's name. I blamed myself, because that's what happens when betrayal disguises itself in ambiguity. It infects your self-worth before you even realize you've been poisoned. She said she wasn't cheating. She said I was imagining things. She said I was being too sensitive, too suspicious, too much. And I believed her. 'Cause I needed to. Because if she wasn't lying, then I wasn't losing her. And if I wasn't losing her, maybe we still had a chance. We made love one night. Slowly, quietly, like two people trying to remember a song they used to know. After, I watched her slip out of bed and sit in the dark living room for an hour. Followed her. She didn't notice me standing in the hallway. She was staring at her phone, smiling, typing, then erasing, then typing again. I turned away. That night I didn't sleep. Again. The next morning I asked her one last time, "Are you in love with someone else?" She froze, then said nothing. And sometimes, silence is the most painful confession. That was the moment something snapped in me. Not rage, not even grief, just clarity. I had been fighting for us alone, trying to fix something she had already let go of. And love, no matter how deep, cannot hold together a story when one of its writers has already begun a new chapter. The morning was gray, heavy, the kind of day where even the sky seems to know something is about to end. I had made my decision the night before, though it felt less like a choice and more like the final, inevitable breath before drowning. She was in the kitchen when I walked in, pouring coffee like it was just another Tuesday. The steam rose between us, but I was already cold. Her back was to me, hair still damp from the shower, humming that same soft tune she always did when she was avoiding something. I said her name, just her name, and she stopped humming. She didn't turn around, not right away. But when she finally did, her eyes found mine. And in that brief second I saw it. The truth. All of it. Not guilt. Not even fear. just a resignation. Like she'd been waiting for me to catch up to the version of her she'd already become. I held the printed photo in my hands. The one from the rooftop party. Her and Ethan, not touching but close. Too close. I didn't say a word. Just held it out to her. Her fingers trembled as she took it. She stared at it in silence and then, slowly, she sat down. She didn't deny it. Didn't even ask how I found it. She just said, in a voice I barely recognized, "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my body didn't know how else to survive the pain. "This far," I whispered. "You wrote about him in your diary like he was your salvation." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't trust them anymore, because I had cried too. Alone, in the dark, with no one to witness me. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, as if that made it better. As if the absence of intent could undo the devastation. "But you did," I said, voice shaking. "You hurt me every time you smiled at me knowing you had someone else in your heart." She looked down, folded the photo in half, and I realized this wasn't going to be a fight. There would be no screaming, no slammed doors, no cinematic drama. Because the worst breakups are quiet. Could have stayed. I could have begged, made her choose, tried to reclaim what was already lost. But something inside me, something raw and ancient, whispered, "No more." So I stood up. "I'm not staying in a story where I'm no longer the person you write about." She opened her mouth, but no sound came. I walked past her, past the memories, past the life we built that now felt like a lie wrapped in routine. I packed my things in silence. The books I had lent her stayed. So did the sweater she always stole. I didn't want to take pieces of her with me. Before I left, I turned one last time. She was standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. And for a split second, I saw the girl I fell in love with. The one who once whispered always like it was a promise etched into her bones. But promises are just words. And words, I've learned, can be rewritten. Closed the door behind me. And the sound it made was louder than anything I've ever heard. That was the moment I knew. Had chosen myself. Even if it meant walking away broken. Even if it meant starting over with a heart that didn't yet know how to beat without her name in it. People talk about heartbreak like it's a storm. Loud, violent, all-consuming. But no one really prepares you for what comes after. The silence. The stillness. The unbearable quiet where their voice used to be. The day after I left, I woke up in my sister's guest room. The bed was too soft, the light too sharp. For a moment, I reached for her out of habit, only to find empty sheets and a void where her warmth used to live. That was the first lesson in grief. It's not just missing the person. It's missing the habits of love. I didn't eat much that week. Didn't speak much either. My phone lit up with her name once. Just once. A message that said, "I'm sorry." I didn't reply, because I had finally realized that closure wasn't something she could give me. It was something I had to find within myself. So I started therapy. The first session I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Not just for the betrayal, but for the version of me that had stayed quiet for so long, that had swallowed suspicion and dressed it up as loyalty. The therapist asked me something that stuck with me. When did you stop listening to yourself? That question unraveled me, because I had stopped listening long before I found the diary. Long before Ethan. I had silenced my own needs to keep the illusion alive. So I started rebuilding. Tiny pieces. Little victories. I took long walks without headphones, learning to sit with my own thoughts. I bought new bedsheets, new mugs, new music. I deleted old photos but kept one, the one where I looked genuinely happy. Not to remember her, but to remember me. I started journaling. Every morning. Just a few lines. First it was messy. I hate her. I miss her. I wish it had all been a lie. But then the words changed. I'm proud of myself for walking away. I am not someone you replace. I deserve love that doesn't have conditions. And slowly, imperceptibly, I began to breathe again. I went out with friends. Laughed without forcing it. Flirted a little. Not because I was ready, but because I wanted to remember how it felt to be seen. Not out of guilt, not in secret, but with clarity and intention. Months passed. Seasons changed. The pain didn't vanish. Never really does. But it softened. It became a scar, not a wound. A reminder, not a prison. One night, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. Really looked. I saw the sadness still flickering in my eyes, sure. But I also saw strength. Not the kind that roars. The kind that endures. I had learned to set boundaries. To listen to my intuition. To love myself not as a backup plan, but as a choice. And in the quiet spaces she used to fill, I found something unexpected. Not because everything was fixed, but because I had stopped needing her to fix it. I started to love again, slowly, cautiously, but differently this time. I knew now that love without honesty is just performance, and I was done acting. They say heartbreak changes you, but no one tells you how much it reveals you. What's left when the illusions are gone? When the we becomes me again? In the beginning, I thought the pain would consume me. I thought I'd never be able to look at love without flinching, without expecting it to disappear the moment I got too close. But healing didn't come all at once. Came in fragments like the breaking had. In the pause before replying to her final message. In the decision to block her number, not out of bitterness, but protection. In the mornings when I no longer reached for her out of instinct. There's no map for rebuilding yourself after someone detonates your foundation. You just start where you are. And where I was raw and real. I had loved deeply, maybe too deeply. The kind of love that forgets to hold something back. And that's what I learned in the ashes of what we had. Love isn't about giving someone all of you. It's about offering them a sacred part, without abandoning the rest. Because what I gave her was not just love. It was me. My softness. My laughter. My willingness to forgive even before the apology came. And she didn't just betray the relationship. She betrayed the version of me that believed in forever. But here's the truth no one tells you. Even if they betray you, it doesn't mean your love was a mistake. It means they weren't ready to receive it. And that has nothing to do with your worth. I learned to sit with my own silence, and not be afraid of it. I learned that my vulnerability is not weakness. It's my greatest strength. Because despite everything, I still believe in love. Not the fairy tale. The real kind. The kind that doesn't flinch in the face of truth. The kind that doesn't live in shadows. The kind that says, "Here I am, all of me, and I trust you not to break it." And one day I'll find that. Or maybe it'll find me. But until then, I'm not waiting. I'm living. Fully. Fiercely. And with a heart stitched back together, not to hide the scars, but to wear them as reminders of what I've survived. So if you're listening to this, wondering if you'll ever stop hurting, you will. Not suddenly, not neatly, but you will. You'll breathe again without crying. You'll sleep without seeing their face in every dream. You'll laugh, and it'll feel real, not rehearsed. And maybe one day you'll thank the heartbreak, not because you deserved it, but because it forced you to meet the most important person you'd been avoiding, yourself. So I leave you with this. Would you forgive someone who broke your heart, while looking you in the eyes and calling it love? Or better yet, would you ever let them do it twice? 'Cause now I know my answer. And I hope with all my heart that one day you'll know yours too.